All right, boys and girls, let's dive into things. We got programming 101. You want to learn how to program on your own? Let's dive into things. Just a brief outline for everything. Yeah, kind of going to dive into the nitty gritty of it, but just to have a basic understanding for programming on your own with specific goals in mind. So, what is programming? Programming is going to be the roadmap to help you achieve your fitness goals. It's kind of the blueprint. It's your grocery list, what needs to get done in order for you to be successful and where you want to go, right? So figuring out what your goal is the most important part. If you have like some arbitrary, I just want to get fit or I want to lose weight, it's kind of just in the mist. You can't really have the lay of the land for where you want to go. So do you want power, hypertrophy, strength, conditioning, or are you training for aesthetics? Your training must reflect your goals, and having the right programming will allow you to get there. You can't say my goal is to run a marathon and you're only running 50-meter sprints. They need to be on the same page. You can't be trying to get 20-inch arms and only doing singles or only doing, I don't know, freaking wrist curls or something. Your programming needs to reflect your goals. So understanding your goal. There's a stark contrast between working out and training. The difference is a plan. Again, if I'm trying to, I don't know, get abs by the summertime, decrease my body fat percentage, but you're just going in there and working out, you're trying to burn calories while you're at the gym and just throwing shit against the wall and, hopefully you get there. It ain't going to happen. It might get there. A broken clock is right twice a day. But in order to achieve your goal on a direct flight, you got to have a plan. So that is with intent, rep ranges, rest intervals, exercise selection, intensifiers, eccentrics, isometrics, metabolic conditioning, neural adaptations, holy shit, and mobility. Don't just throw shit against the wall. So again, you got to figure out where you want to go. You got to have the blueprint for how you're going to get there. Then you need to execute in order for you to get there. Cool? So the order of operations. The way programming is broken down, it should be broken down, is a macro cycle. So that is the largest cycle, typically on a year. So if it is starting in January, by December, I want to add 40 pounds to my back squat. How are we going to get there? We're going to break it down by probably quarterly. So that would be a mesocycle, 4 months, or 3 months rather. With a little bit of leeway, it could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less, but what are we going to do in that training block, right? Then smaller than that is going to be our microcycle. So this could be month to month, week to week, day to day even, or even in between our training sessions, right? So while we are training, it could be a strength block, could be a power block within that training cycle, depending upon your type of linear or undulating progression. We'll touch base on that a little bit later. But the baseline for what we got going on, I don't know, that's covering up, but it's mobility. We got to have the range of motion in order to perform movements. If our chest is extremely tight, we can't even perform a bench press, how are we going to hypertrophy those muscles? How are we going to gain strength in these muscles? If we can't even, go through a proper range of motion. So we got to focus on mobility. From there, we're moving to stability. Now that we have a full range of motion, we need to be stable throughout this entire range of motion. If we are, stable at the top portion of our squat, but as we start going down, our hips are all janky and, kind of jacked up and we're shifting into one hip, it's not going to be stable. It's kind of like a house of cards. We can't progress accordingly if we are not stable throughout the entire range of motion and throughout these joints. From there, it is endurance. So we need to have the capability to perform this allotted amount of sets that we have in mind, particularly with, novice lifters or people just getting into the gym. We don't want to go in there and go for a 1 rep max. We need to create some type of endurance that's going to open up these neural pathways and kind of like a sled going down a hill. So if we are routinely going down the same hill, the same route, that groove is going to deeper and deeper. We're just going to become more efficient and more effective in contracting the muscle fibers. But if it's our first time going down the hill, it's probably going to be a little bit darty. That's why when you see novice lifters or people performing a new movement, it's a little bit funky looking, right? If we have a barbell curl, if we've never done a barbell curl before, we're probably going to be shifting over a little bit and kind of muscling it up. So from there is endurance. We got to just lay the ground for work for what we got going on. From there, we have hypertrophy. So in order to develop strength and power, we need more muscle mass to begin with, right? So that would be having more raw material. If we're going to build a house, we got to have enough 2x4s and nuts and bolts and nails in order to build the house. So if we want to build strength and power, we got to have enough muscle mass to start generating that muscle. So this is increasing cross-sectional area, aka just getting bigger muscles. From there, we can densify, if that's a word, our strength. So this is now building strength. Now we have the raw material. Let's sharpen the axe now. Let's make it a little bit more stronger. And then finally, we have our power development now. So now we have the muscle mass. It is strong. So now let's freaking produce some force as quickly and rapidly as possible to move some weight and create or complete work. All right. So that is the chain of command for what we got going on. Boom. And we're going to repeat that indefinitely. Obviously, if we're not looking for strength and power and our main goal is hypertrophy, then we would just, kind of work ourselves back right here. Or if it's, power development, or maybe we're in like a sport phase, we're probably going to stay around here, still dabbling around the mobility and stability aspect of things. But, depending upon your sport, depending upon your goals, that is where we want to go. But we can't jump right into something and just go right into power development. If it's our first time doing a movement or a snatch and we're lacking overhead mobility, we can't just go in there and try and snatch 200 pounds. You know what I'm saying? So that is the lay of the land. Now, we have our SAID principle. What the heck is the SAID principle? That is specific adaptations for imposed demands. Sorry for my face being over here. Let me move you. Yeah, imposed demands. So we can see right here, we have a long distance marathon runner. We got type 1 muscle fibers. They are highly resistant to fatigue. They are not contracting quickly, but it's very low intensity, but going for a very long time, right? So they're using oxygen, they're using stored fats as a primary fuel source. And the muscles and the muscle bellies in the cross-sectional area of this young man is showing what he's training for, right? And then we got our sprinter right here. We got a little bit more muscle mass on us. We got some type 2 muscle fibers. They are very explosive, but they fatigue very quickly. That's why it's not running a marathon. It's probably running a 100-meter sprint and just really getting busy. So you get out what you put in. Again, understanding your goal, understanding your why, and then having your training reflect that. So obviously this dude is doing more sprints. He's probably lifting. He's probably doing explosive movements in his training. He's probably doing a lot of heavier loads, more power, more plyometrics. This dude is probably doing more endurance, more full body, probably sport specific, going on runs all the time, long distance runs. So the SAID principle. All right, let's dive into each goal or each training phase accordingly. So muscular endurance, again, my face, I got to get him out of here. Training is used to enhance the ability of muscles to perform at submaximal levels for many reps over a greater time and increase overall work capacity. So this is your muscular endurance. So lighter reps, lighter intensity, going for a long time. So the rep scheme that we are looking for, 12 to 30 reps. They don't need to be very heavy. They need to be lighter, and just getting that ability to perform work. We're going to have much less of a rest interval, so less than 45 seconds. We want to get our body adapted to buffering pH and getting all the waste products out of the way and just being very efficient as far as our contractions. 6+ sets per exercise, just a lot of work. So low CNS fatigue, high muscular fatigue, high volume, low load, no to low rest, and less than 65% of your 1 rep max. So again, load is going to dictate volume. So if it is a low load, it's going to be a high volume. If there's a lot of volume, that's going to have muscular fatigue. If it is high volume, it's going to be a low CNS fatigue. See how everything is inversely related. But this is how you are going to gain endurance. That first step along the way. Where am I going? What the heck? Oh, here we go. Get me on the next slide. There we go. Exercise selection, incorporate full body patterns and compound movements to recruit the greatest amount of muscle fibers yielding the largest cardiovascular output. That is also a key player in this is cardiovascular output. So we got devil press, burpees, thrusters, row biker, and ski ergs. So just some type of modality that is requesting that cardio component. Walking lunges, so we have a movement component with this one. Complexes, metcons, that's metabolic conditioning, and HIIT training. So this may ruffle some feathers, but HIIT training is just endurance training and essentially cardio. You're not building strength, you're not building hypertrophy, you're not going to hypertrophy your muscles with HIIT training. You may, develop some power, but after repeated events and repeated tries, you're not going to improve any power quality. So this is all going to be muscular endurance. We're going to get that heart rate going. We're going to be using oxygen as the primary fuel, or fat, carbohydrates as the primary fuel source. Holy shit. But that is what we were working at. Hypertrophy, moving on to the next one. Hypertrophy is moving load with the sole intent to increase cross-sectional area of muscle tissue, increase size. So this is what we were talking about before. We're just getting larger muscles. The next step down in that chain of command, we're looking for 5 to 30 reps, 45 to 90 seconds of rest, and 4 to 6 sets per exercise. You may be thinking, but James, I always thought 4 sets of 12 was like the golden ticket as far as hypertrophy. Now, 5 to 30 reps, this is such a large window, right? And there are, so many studies that are saying for novice lifters, even 1 rep could increase some hypertrophy in, beginners, up to 5 reps, all the way up to 30 reps. So anything that is, challenging that muscle with low rest intervals, with a moderate load, that's going to promote some type of hypertrophic effect on muscle tissue. So what we want to look for right here with 30 reps, like a realistic approach to this. So what can we do for 30 reps? Maybe on a leg extension machine, maybe on a hamstring curl machine, maybe on like a drop set of dumbbell lateral raises. Are we going to do 30 reps on a back squat? So that movement is going to have a lot more of a load on our central nervous system. It's going to be a lot more strenuous. Now, unless you're like tapped in the head psychopath, you'll probably be doing sets of 30 reps on a back squat. Are you going to be able to work tomorrow? Are you going to be able to walk? Are you going to be able to sit down properly, go downstairs? So now that's like that practical approach of how am I going to layer in my exercise selection alongside my rep schemes and my rest intervals. So especially if you're only resting 90 seconds after 30 reps of back squat, you're probably going to have your heart in your neck and dying and walking like Bambi. So having that practical approach of where we are going to apply this, we're still going to find benefit, but also as far as an adherence standpoint, if every time you're doing legs is an absolute shit show and you're on your deathbed after 4 sets, 120 reps, and that is 1 movement of your workout, having that practical approach and seeing where, these rep schemes fit in. They're all going to be beneficial, but where can we fit in and where, on a realistic side of things, how can we adhere to this? Because a lot of this is just going to be consistency and, long-term getting in there, getting in that work. So low CNS fatigue, again, not too strenuous. We have a little bit more of a moderate CNS fatigue as we are getting a little bit lower in these reps, but high muscular fatigue, and that is going to be the driving factor for hypertrophy. It's just that volume, low rest intervals, and just getting busy. So high volume, low to moderate load, low to moderate rest, 87 to 65% of that 1 rep max. So we're not going too heavy, balls to the wall, having a hernia with these training sessions, but we do want that intensity and just that ability to get close to failure. That, again, that's going to be where we find that driving factor for hypertrophy, is how close we are to failure within that rep range. If we're getting to 20 reps and we could have done it for 40, that's not really going to drive hypertrophy. If we're getting to 10 and 10 is like form is starting to suffer, starting to talk to God on the tail end of that set, that's going to be driving hypertrophy. So again, it's going to be intent, RPE, rating of perceived exertion, RIR, reps in reserve, how close are we driving this to failure. Exercise selection, incorporating mostly isolation movements with compound movements that promote low CNS fatigue, slow eccentrics, and full range of motion. So again, going back to choosing movements that have a low CNS fatigue, if we are doing back squats, if we are doing deadlifts, if we're doing rack pulls within these rep ranges, yes, they are going to promote some hypertrophy effects in us, but they are going to totally smoke your CNS if we are doing this routinely for a high volume. If we're doing high intensity workouts with a high volume, that's a recipe for you not doing a lot that week as far as your training block, outside of these exercises and workouts, or recipe for potential injury as you go down the line, as we're just hammering our joints and hammering our CNS and So picking movements that are not extremely fatiguing, and if we are, being mindful of the rest of that cumulative load throughout that workout. If we're doing a shit ton of back squats at the front end of our workout, probably not going to be doing walking lunges or Bulgarian split squats or leg press or leg curls afterwards, unless you're on like some type of PED for recovery. So being mindful of that. Slow eccentrics. This is where growth happens as well. So on the eccentric phase, if you can picture your muscle fibers like Velcro, so boom, click together, right? That's the contraction of the muscle group. Get up a little bit. Boom, contraction of the muscle fibers as they are lengthening, pulling each other apart. If you can picture the Velcro ripping each other apart, I'm sure you can hear it in your head right now. That is going to cause muscle damage. Where muscle damage occurs, not like injury damage, but muscle damage is where all the nutrients can go in there and build it back stronger. So focusing on the lowering phase and a nice explosive concentric phase, the lifting phase, in a full range of motion. So again, going back to that mobility and stability aspect of things, if we are like half repping, we're not getting the best squeeze, squeeze as in like, the juice ain't worth the squeeze type thing. We want the most benefit out of every repetition. So go the full range of motion. That'll also save you from potential injury if we are not strengthening our muscle groups through full ranges of motion. So exercise selection, we got squat, bicep curls, leg extension, chest fly, Bulgarian split squats, hamstring curls, lateral raise, and hip thrusts. So notice how these are mostly single joint movements, low CNS fatigue. Moving into our strength. Training for strength is for the intent of moving the most amount of weight, improving motor unit recruitment and firing rate. So hammering down from hypertrophy. Now we have our bigger muscles. Let's make these mother effers go to work, right? So we're improving motor unit recruitment. Going back to the novice lifter who doesn't really know how to perform a barbell curl, a little bit funky. Motor units are not on the same page. Some people are firing, some people not so much. There's kind of a threshold for when your motor units get to work, right? So if it's all or nothing, they don't know how to contract properly, then it's just going to be a janky rep. It's not going to be a controlled eccentric. It's not going to be a nice, powerful concentric movement. So we're improving the quality of our motor unit recruitment and firing rate, how quickly they can fire, how much force in a short amount of time we can get them up and running. So 1 to 5 reps, 90 seconds to 5 minutes rest, 3 to 6 sets per exercise. This is a highly fatiguing exercises to the CNS. So if you are consistently doing back squats for triples or deadlifts for like 8 sets of 1, your ass is going to be gassed. It is going to be fatiguing. It's a lot of weight. It's very intense. It's a very low volume, but the load is up. So the fatigue is going to be there. We have low to moderate muscular fatigue because the volume isn't necessarily going to be there. You're still going to experience some DOM, delayed onset muscle soreness, but not to the rate as you would hypertrophy training. The volume is low. Again, load dictates volume. High load, moderate to high rest, 95 to 85% of that 1 rep max. Rest. You want to be able to perform. You don't want to go into a strength set huffing and puffing. You want to get that heart rate down controlled. You want to move into every set with intent, moving as heavy a load as possible. Strength exercise selection. We're working with patterns that allow you to move the greatest loads, compound movements, high CNS fatigue, and structural loading. Structural loading is going to be on your spine. We're not going to be doing a bicep curl for a 1 RM. We're not going to max out a single arm preacher curl. I'm sure you've seen the videos on YouTube or TikTok of people just blowing out bicep tendons. We're not going to do a 1 rep max of a calf raise, so it's going to be high load on your body. This is structural loading. So back, front squat, deadlift, strict press, pen lay row, tricep dip, bench press, rack pull, farmer's carries, just heavy shit on your body. That is what we are looking at right here. High fatigue, compound movements. Power. Training for power is to maximize force production in a given movement with speed. This is important. Speed being a variable on multiple attempts. Powerlifting, the idea of powerlifting, a lot of people say it should be switched to strength lifting or strength training because they're not lifting power movements. Power movements are going to be the snatch, the clean, a jerk, where they are moving submaximal loads at a very quick pace, as quickly as possible, going from point A to point B as quickly as possible. That is power development. that is force production. So if we are doing a 1RM on a back squat and it's a 3-second eccentric, 5 seconds on the way up, there's no speed. There is power being developed, but it is against a external load that is just about matching, slightly less than our force production. So it's very slow, concentric, very slow on the way up. So speed is definitely a factor. Right here, 85 to 70% of our 1RM. So now that we have that strength, we're going to take it down a notch and really hammer home how quickly can we use this strength. Moderate to high CNS fatigue, low to moderate muscular fatigue, moderate volume, low to moderate load, moderate to high rest. So again, if we are looking to be as efficient as possible with these movements, we want to give ourselves some adequate rest. If we're going for, a triple for a power clean right from the bottom, we're not going to be able to produce as much force as we can, and then wait 30 seconds, and then do it again. CNS got to calm down, heart rate's got to come down, all the byproduct, all the waste of us just doing that lift needs to get out of the cells, need to get us back in there, back to 100%. So the rest is going to be there, all right? So that's why when we're talking about HIIT training and stuff like that, if we're doing multiple attempts on a snatch, that load is probably going to be about 65%. We're not going to be doing, 30 reps altogether of a snatch at our 85% of our 1RM. So yeah, bearing that in mind, it's a lighter load with speed being what we're looking for. Work with patterns that allow you to move the greatest loads. Compound movements, high speed is the same thing. Forgot to type something else, but you get the idea. Snatches, push press, jerk, clean, swing variations, plyometrics, bounds, ballistic movements. So notice how all of these have that very explosive nature to them. Ground to overhead as quickly as possible, shoulders to overhead, ground to shoulders from right position, swing. We are forcefully extending our hips. A lot of these movements do not work if we are not moving them quickly. Now let's say you can snatch deadlift 300 pounds. That's cool. You can do that. You can't throw 300 pounds over your head if that is going to be your deadlift. It needs force. It needs speed. It needs you to get up under the bar. So it needs a lighter weight in order for you to throw it up there accordingly. Swing variation, same idea. If you see anyone moving a swing pattern slow, they're doing a front raise with their shoulders, So we need that forceful extension of our hips to get those kettlebells up to about mid-chest. Same idea with plyometrics. You can't do a box jump slowly. That's weird. And you're not going to be able to develop as much strength as you can, or as much power and force into the ground to propel you up onto that box. So we need to be rapid. Bound, same idea. If we're doing, a triple jump or a burpee broad jump or a lateral bound and stuff like that, we can't slowly go into it. And then, it's got to be quick. It's got to be rapid. There's a thing called the amortization phase. So it's eccentric to a concentric. The most that we can reduce the amortization phase, holy crap, the better, the more explosive you're going to be. If it is, we're landing and then we take a very long time, all that potential energy that is going into that joint, going into those muscles, it's dissipating. It's going out. It's just pissing out energy leakage. But if we boom, we're down and then explode the other way, that's power. That's explosive. So the amortization phase needs to be low, very quick. Ballistic movement, same idea. If we're throwing a medicine ball on the ground and throwing it up in the air, got to be quick with it. Can't be slow. That's power. So intensity, volume. Load dictates volume. What I've been talking about the whole time, the intensity of the lift decides how many reps can be performed, also which energy system is being called to action, what is being challenged. Again, going back to your goal in mind, and what you are trying to change and what you are trying to train. So makes sense, word salad, but if your 1RM is 300 pounds, you can do 300 pounds for 1RM. That is your volume. It's one. If we're going to cut that in half, we can probably do it for, 15 to 20 maybe, and that would be 150 pounds. And that would be two completely energy systems that we're working for. The latter being more kind of aerobic conditioning, so a little bit more fat, using oxygen in there. The second one, anaerobic, glycolytic, using glucose, using, the heck am I trying to think of? Creatine, phosphate, and everything to get up that weight as quickly as possible. So load dictates volume, and also which energy system you are training at. It's also going to dictate CNS fatigue. It's going to play a role with overtraining, overreaching, and the necessity for a deload and deload week. We can talk about that a little bit later. But signs of overtraining. If we are consistently hammering those 1RMs, like what we were talking about, you're going to start overtraining. It's just your body can't keep up unless you want it fed on PEDs and sleeping 9 to 10 hours a day and in a hyperbolic chamber and dotting your I's and crossing your T's as far as your nutrition. Everyone is going to eventually, come across this if they are just consistently hammering home high intensity workouts. It's also going to increase cortisol and give you a decreased ability to burn fat, which a lot of people want to do, but also build muscle, So if we are experiencing persistent fatigue, decreased performance, poor recovery, sleep disturbances, appetite changes, and mood changes, you're probably overtraining. We don't need the white knuckle every workout and say, fucking suck it up, have another scoop of pre-workout. We're getting in there, getting busy. We have to deload. We got to give our body a time to adjust and adapt and grow and, experience these changes. But if we're in there and consistently just hammering it down, this is muscle damage when we're training. Muscle recovery, muscle growth, that happens outside of the gym, happens in the kitchen, happens in the bedroom when you're sleeping. So listen to your body. Linear versus undulating programming. So we got this nice little sign over here. Get you. All right. So this is going to be mobility stability. This is going to be kind of hypertrophy training. Intensity starts going up. Volume starts going down. This is going to be our strength. This is going to be power. Right? And let's say this is the big ball that you've been training for. This is kind of our goal right here. This is beach season, or this is if you're, playing football. This is like going into the season. This is where you're going to be peaking. Volume all the way down, intensity all the way up. So having a certain goal in mind, relevancy to time. That's why we want those SMART goals, and have something in mind that we're shooting for, instead of arbitrarily just going in there and working whatever workout that we found on TikTok. Daily undulating periodization. This is another approach to it. We can have high volume day, so this could be a hypertrophy day. This could be bounds, ballistics, low CNS fatiguing, body weight movements with a high volume. Then we're going to move down here, where intensity is going to drop off, volume's going to drop off. We're just going to back off. Maybe Monday is intense, Wednesday not so much, and then we hit a strength day right here. So high volume or high intensity, lowered volume, move it down here, decompress a little bit, but, more of a microcycle approach, and this is more of a mesocycle approach, right? At the end of the day, strength, we're still going to see that increase. Hypertrophy, we're still going to see that increase, but just moving accordingly. And this is just kind of a zoomed in sign of that linear programming, right? So if we're right here, this outlines potentially DOMs, potentially new training stimulus that could set you back, and then also the potential for overtraining right here. So let's say we're going through a hypertrophy phase right here. We're going to increase the load, so that means it's a new stressor, a little bit more load on us, maybe a new movement going from single joint to multi-joint compound movements, increasing the intensity. So now performance is going to drop off a little bit just because it's new. It's a new movement pattern. It's just a new something going on us. So if we're not giving ourselves time to adapt and recover and come back a stronger version of ourselves, that's where we're going to incorporate or encompass overtraining, overreaching. We're not going to have that compensation period right here where we increase our baseline and get up to, a greater performance level than where we were right here. But again, we need to change up and, gradually improve ourselves and increase that next stressor. Complacency and, spinning our tires, that is not going to breed any type of improvement. So we go from strength to power. So now we're decreasing the intensity, the load, and increasing, the force production, the new movements, the speed, the dynamic movements. So again, we're going to have that little bit of drop off, but even then we're still just about where we were 4-5 months ago, right? So bearing this in mind, that we always need to change it up, give yourself that kind of novelty, introduce those new stressors for your body to adapt to. Now with undulating, that's going to incorporate some rest days here and there throughout the week. So that's going to allow you to kind of just chug along as you see fit, take those rest days as you need it. With linear programming, it's straight shot to the top. Ideally, that's where the programming is going. So a good rule of thumb, you do 3 weeks on, 1 week as a deload. 4 weeks on, 1 week as a deload. Deload is moving the same exact volume at a decreased load or decreased intensity. So let's say we're doing, we're in a hypertrophy phase, we're doing, 4 sets at 8, and we're moving at 85% of our 1 RM. So hit that for 3 weeks, increase accordingly. And then on that 4th week, so at the end of the month, 85% of the 85%, you're still working a 4x8 as well as all the other movements that are within that workout, 85% of everything. So you're still getting the benefit as far as like neural adaptations of going through these movement patterns and really like ingraining movement quality with yourself. But it's, you're giving yourself some rest, some decompression. Again, not beating a dead horse. You're giving yourself some room to breathe and kind of bring back that zest. Because after a week of going light, that doesn't mean if you're going light in a compound movement, pick up the slack in the rest of your movements. That's not the idea. Want to give your CNS as much of a break as possible while still getting quality reps to ingrain quality movement. So now the following week, we're all jazzed up. Our CNS is back to 100%. Hopefully, we got some good sleep. We hydrated well. We're well fed. And now we're in there. And now we face this super compensation phase. So we had a little bit of a deload. Boom. And now we're going to come back stronger and more equipped to handle this next block of training. Make sense? Cool. All right. Same, but different. Where can I put my face? Let's put me over here. All right, so outside of sport-specific needs, movement patterns are movement patterns. A rose is a rose is a rose. So we can see right here, we got a back squat, we got a front squat, we have a goblet squat, we have a B-stand squat, we have a Bulgarian split squat. Look at the knees of all of these gentlemen. Flexed, upright torso, probably all training the quads. We're getting, probably different core recruitment, maybe more mid-back, maybe more erectors with certain movements, maybe more of a, stability factor with these two, maybe more core right here, more structural loading right here. And we can piece together when we were talking about, exercise selection, where we're going to place in our movements for which phase. So if we're looking for more so hypertrophy, probably this is probably the, lowest amount of CNS loading. We can still get benefit right here, but as far as, the structural demand and CNS fatiguing of this movement, are we going to hit 5 sets of 30? Probably not. Can we hit 5 sets of 12 or 15 on these? They're going to suck, but yes. Same idea here. If we're going for strength, we're going to hit this. We're going to hit this a lot. Same idea for the front squats. Let's hammer these home. Some accessory work, maybe some deload, stuff like that. We can supplement these in. But having, at the end of the day, these are squat patterns. These are knee extensions, knee extensors. But sport-specific needs, if you're a power lifter and you're looking to improve your back squat. You can't not do back squats and expect to get, world record or place well in your weight division if you're not doing back squats. So definitely want to, stay within that realm. But if you're just general fitness, obviously having fun and having some novelty and changing things up, like if we're doing a lot of Bulgarian split squats, it's probably going to improve your front squat. If we're doing a lot of goblet squats or B-stand squats, improving that stability and mobility aspect of our ankles and knees and hips, it's probably going to allow you to get down deeper and expose or allow you to, be stronger in these movements. So if you are not really training for a specific goal, like sport-wise or lifting-wise, and you're just looking to, improve general fitness and improve movement patterns, play around. They're all going to play off of one another. At the end of the day, it's still a squat pattern, right? Yep, that's what I just said. So what's this mean for you? Huh? Always have a goal. Be smart. So specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound. This is what we were talking about at the beginning, having a SMART goal. So if you are, I've spoken with so many clients that's like, I just want to get fit. Just want to get fit, man. That's arbitrary. We can work out for 6 months, and if you, do you feel fit? What is fit? What is fit in your eyes? So be specific. I'm 190 pounds. I want to get down to 175 pounds. in 6 months. Bada bing, bada boom. So what do we need to do? So we can lose 1 to 2 pounds of body fat per week. If that's 15 pounds, that is 15 to 30 weeks. If we're doing everything correctly as far as adherence, cool. So this is measurable. So every week we need to check in and be down about a pound or 2 pounds. Is it attainable? Yeah, I think that's perfectly attainable, 15 pounds in 6 months. If you were to say, I want to gain 100 pounds of muscle by next Friday, I got a big audition for a commercial going on, I'd say you're out of your mind. That's neither attainable or realistic. And then time bound as well. I want to lose 15 pounds. Cool. 30 years at some point in your life, tomorrow, figuring out your SMART goal. That's going to lay the groundwork and just make it a lot more just easy overall to get in there and, figure out the steps that are necessary in order for you to be successful. Give your body time to adjust and adapt. Don't just float around trying different workouts every day. SAID, right? SAID principle, specific adaptations of imposed demands. Let's say, I don't know, a 5x5 workout or the German volume training, the 10x10, right? Or, we're going to do a HIIT workout today. We're going to do strength training tomorrow. Just bumping around, Your body's a system and it needs time, it needs routine. And changes don't just happen overnight. So giving your body, a couple months, give it a full mesocycle, give it a full time block in order to adjust to the demands that's going on to it. Obviously, nutrition, sleep patterns, daily activity, everything can play a role as far as what goals you're seeing within your programming. But you got to give it time, right? So have fun. Movement is your body at play. Don't become attached to dogma. So this is specifically at the bro split people, or people that are like, maces are dumb, kettlebells are dumb, bodybuilding is dumb, strength training is dumb. This is how I'm going to do my thing. And I haven't really been seeing the results that I've wanted, but that other stuff is pretty dumb. Don't be afraid to step out of your lane. Don't be afraid to try new things. Like we were talking about before, your body needs new stressors. So let's say if your back squat is not going up, and I've been doing the same workout routine for 3 months, that's kind of the definition of insanity. Something needs to change. If you're not seeing results and you're doing the same thing routinely, you got to switch it up. Maybe you are lacking mobility, or maybe one of your glutes or quads is underactive, and that is not allowing you to have the most potential energy in your squat. So have fun, explore, try new movements. They may be the missing link between you spinning your tires and you being successful. And lastly, listen to your body. Know when to put on the gas. That should be a P. Know when to put on the gas. Know when to pump the brakes. We're talking about deloads. We're talking about CNS fatigue. We're talking about just lust for the gym, right? It's strenuous. Not every day you want to get in there and get busy and, put it on. You don't need to white knuckle it. You don't need to have an extra cup of coffee because you're lacking motivation or you're lacking discipline. The idea of no days off, or you're a wimp if you are taking a rest day, what's that? You got to give your body time to adapt. If you're feeling like shit and you're gassed and you are just fatigued as all hell and you're not sleeping and you're kind of moody, that's a great sign that you should maybe take an off day. Go do some yoga, go do some stretching, go on a walk for a couple of days, get your mind right. The gym is always going to be there. You don't need to beat yourself to a pulp for the sake of going in there and getting a workout in. It's always going to be there. But if you're not finding any progress, or not, first off, having any success or having fun in the gym, could be a good sign to switch things up and take some time off, but also knowing when to pump the gas. You are the only person that knows how hard you're training. You're the only person that knows how many reps you had left over and your rating of perceived exertion. Some people make funny faces after 1 rep. I make stupid faces after 3. So it's like, I'm probably going to make a stupid face for the next 9 reps as well. But if, you're gassed at that 9th one, then only you know that. So listen to your body, have fun, take your time with it, and just be smart. Hopefully this serves its purpose for you. Happy programming. If you got any questions, feel free to reach out. We'll talk soon.